Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Author Collaborative. As always, I will be talking to an author whose book I have recently read and enjoyed. And I'm really excited for this week's episode because this author is someone I have been meaning to speak to for a while. In fact, this is the first book of hers that I have read. Hi, Nilshri. Thank you for joining. So the guest for today is Debeshi Gooptu, and I am really excited to host her because she is somebody whose work has been yes, Nilshri, new haircut. Thank you for noticing. Yes, so my guest for today is Debeshi Gooptu, and I have been recommended her books by many of my author bloggers and reader friends, and I'm really excited to talk to her about my experience of reading her book. And she's already here, so without further ado, let me invite her and start today's episode. Thank you, Nilshri. I'm glad you like my new haircut. Okay, I am going to. Debeshi, I have sent you an invitation. See if you received it and you are able to accept it. Hi Tarang, thank you for joining us. I'm waiting for Deveshi to join me in the live so we can start the episode. Uh, Deveshi, did you receive my request? Let me know if you have not received it. I will send you a fresh invitation. I sent you another invitation just now. Sometimes Instagram does not let you send the invitation right away. It takes 2-3 attempts for the guest to accept the invitation. I guess that is what the issue is with this one also. Did you receive it now, Debeshi? I'm sorry. As always, Instagram is not letting this go very smoothly. My guest is unable to accept the request that I have sent her. We will begin the episode in a while. I know a lot of you are excited for this episode. Even I am equally excited to talk to today's guest. Okay, let me try one more time. Yes, Nilsri. You're right. This happens every week, every Friday, or every episode whenever I do this. The guest is never able to accept it right away. Okay. Deveshi, try sending me an invitation. Let's see if that works. Hi, Ritu. Okay, we have her with us. Deveshi, I think you need to turn on the front
Yes,
camera.
yes,
Hi,
I do
Uma.
need
Thank you
to.
for joining us. Hi, Deveshi. So happy to see you.
Sorry.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me on your channel. Just thrilled to be speaking with you.
Same here. Firstly, yes, welcome to the show. And sorry, this keeps happening with every episode that I do on every Friday or whenever I'm doing this. The guest is never able to accept the invitation at first go. So, as Nilshri was mentioning, we are used to it. So,
Yeah,
my
and I
regular
was
audience is
thinking I'm a bit of an anari, as I told you, when it comes to
yeah,
these Insta
yes.
lives. I'm more of a, behind the screen doing my work kind of person. So I thought it was me.
No. This is an Instagram glitch where I have to send the invitation at least 2 to 3 times to the guest, and only then they are able to join me on the screen. Okay, so let's start the episode. First of all, I welcome you again, once again, on the show. And before we start, please tell us about yourself.
So, my name is Debeshi Gooptu, and I'm a writer, among other things. I came into writing books a little late, though I've been writing for my entire career. So, I started off as a journalist, and I worked for 10, 15 years in media. Then I switched over to higher education, but the writing articles and blogs and things was constant. It was only about 10 years back that I thought, why don't I write a book? And that didn't go so well. So I started writing a blog. So for me, it's all been backwards, getting into writing books, but that's what I do now, among other things. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
And I'm so glad you took that decision of writing books because we are blessed. Uh, I want to talk about my experience of reading the book, but I also want to tell you I cannot tell you the number of blogger and reader friends in my circle who have recommended me your books. Like it's been a couple of years or more than that, that at least in a week, at least two people who are in my circle, the blogger and reader friends, they are telling me, have you not read her books? Please read her books. This was like, the universe conspiring against bringing us together. And I'm so glad that this happened. And the book club was the first book of yours that I read because now I'm hooked. Now I want to read all the books.
So that I'm really happy to hear that. Thank you.
And I want to talk about my experience in detail because the book club is absolutely amazing. I love whodunits, and reading your book was like I was laughing all the while because it's first person narrative, and I love first person narratives because you get inside the skin of the character who's telling you the story. You see the story from their perspective, and it's a very close knit detail. And especially if it's a murder mystery, I'm like, हाँ इसके नजरिए से हमें दिख रहा है but we are not seeing the whole picture, so that makes the reading very interesting. And this book from the first page to the last manages to hold that attention. And I have to tell you that very few books have that shock element for me because I am a huge crime thriller fan, and
Okay.
by halfway through the book generally I'm able to gauge कि ये किसने किया होगा. But for your book, I don't want to give spoilers, but yes, there was this surprise element for me also. Like for an avid crime thriller reader like me, if that was the case for me, I'm sure the others would never be able to guess who done it. So yeah, let's first show the book cover to the audience. Which book that I'm raving about so much? So this is the book of Debeshi that I have read, the book club, and it's a whodunit. And the murder happens at a book club meeting, which is like a very different premise, first of all. And those of us who are readers and book lovers, they would be able to, I think, get into the crux of it right away. ये book club में कैसे murder हो गया? Like it's a safe haven for most of us, those of us who are book lovers. And if a murder is happening in a book club meeting, we're like, ये कैसे हो सकता है? So I am going to get right into it and read out a few passages. And this is where the story begins. I'm going to read out from the first chapter itself. And this is where the story begins because we don't want to give out any spoilers. So this is where it starts. The first chapter is called The Beginning. When B was murdered in the middle of a book club meeting, my perfectly planned life went from normal to out of control in the blink of an eye. Let me clarify at the outset that it wasn't one of my usual book club meetings. It was a dinner hosted by Saloni Sharma, B's newest friend. It was a dinner hosted who hijacked my humble book club and turned it into a pastry party. And it was going fairly well till B's dead body was discovered and literally became ludicrous. In retrospect, I wish I had never agreed to the whole circus, but B could be extremely persuasive. We were at Paradise Spa getting a pedicure done when Bansuri, or B as we called her, first dropped the bombshell. Annie, why don't we invite Rohan Sood for our next book club do? I looked up from the architectural digest I was reading and blinked in confusion. Rohan Sood? Who on earth is that? B rolled her eyes and wiggled her toes in the pedicure basin, sending soap suds flying into the air. The swarthy chap kneeling in front of her grimaced and moved his face away while the young man attending to my feet suppressed a smirk. Rohan Sood, yaar, the hotshot author of that book, Secrets and Lies. It's even been made into a Netflix series. Don't tell me you haven't heard of him. I nodded slowly as realization dawned. I had heard of him. I had also read the book as a matter of fact. It was one of those racy pot boilers that climbed the bestseller charts as soon as it had been published. So here we are. We know that the murder has already happened during the book club meeting. We know who has been murdered, and we know that the person who is narrating the story was not very willing to be a participant in the neither the person who has been invited nor was she very keen about the place where the book club meeting was happening. Okay, we have a lot of comments, and I think while I was reading, also many hearts were coming in. So I think people loved that. This is interesting, Shilpa is saying. Okay, so based on my reading, Debeshi, I have a couple of questions for you related to this book and in general your writing. My first question to you is about the first person narrative in this book. As I mentioned, I've read very few murder mysteries where, we are reading the first person perspective, and then when the whodunit is finally revealed, it becomes the shock. I think the shock element it elevates when the first person perspective is there, because you have read the book from their perspective, and then the whodunit happens, and then you realize what all happened and went behind the whole thing. So tell us, was this a conscious decision, and how does one go about writing such a POV when it comes to crime thrillers?
So writing this novel in a first person, from a first person point of view was absolutely a conscious decision, because it was like a challenge that I took on, because there was a specific kind of crime thriller that I wanted to write, where, without giving any spoilers away, where somebody is narrating about her experiences of having witnessed a murder, and then she goes about, uh, you know, uh, not exactly solving it, but her experiences after the murder has been committed. So this was conscious, the first person, and I wanted to see how it would go, because I really wanted to write a crime thriller in first person. Having said that, because I got into writing books from blogging, I have a habit of writing in first person, because you blog as well.
Yeah.
So you will know that we tend to write. I mean, especially for my blog, it's about my experiences of living in Gurgaon. So everything that I write is in first person, and my first book, which was a humorous book, was also, it came out of the blog, was a book written in
Dragon
first
Aunties. Are
person.
you talking about
Dragon
Dragon Aunties?
Yes, yes. So I was like, well, not me, but the one of the characters has a strong resemblance to the way I am. So a
Okay.
Bengali woman living in Gurgaon, who's a prude, she needs to loosen up. So basically, that happened in first person, and I find that automatically my reflex is to write stuff in first person. So I thought, why not try a crime novel in the first person way, because that's going to be challenging. So that's how it happened. It was conscious.
Okay. And in your experience as a reader, I'm just adding on to the question that we are discussing. In your experience as a reader, have you read such crime thrillers where the first person narrative is there? Because
Um,
being an avid reader of the genre, I have read very few. I don't think I can even recall at the spur of the moment any first person no crime thriller.
there aren't too many, but there are one or two, but not too many.
Yeah, because yes, because as I mentioned, I could not think of any when I was reading this. Yes, I was reminded of one particular thriller, which is The Girl on the Train, where we see three women's perspectives. All the three women are involved in it, and we three see their perspectives, but only one person's perspective was first person. The other three are third person. So I was very, pleasantly surprised to read an entire narrative in first person in your book. And it was a very interesting, as well as, it was holding my attention, as I mentioned. So well done on that. Okay, so my next question to you is, you have written other genres also, as far as I know, and I have seen your list of books. But from what I know, and I have heard from the readers and bloggers in my circle, crime thriller happens to be one of those genres where you are most appreciated and widely read. As far as I know, this is one genre that readers tend to appreciate more than other genres written by you. Is that true? Is my you know am I right in assessing that?
Honestly, the last three books that I've written have been in the crime genre. But before that, it was mainly humorous stuff, satirical stuff. So I wouldn't say that. I mean, I'm very thrilled that people have liked crime, because it only happened because I am a crime fiction junkie. I love read, and I've all ever since I was a little girl. I used to just read crime, and it only intensified. So at some point, I thought, why don't I try my hand at writing crime? And however, it's just happened now. I mean,
Hmm.
I didn't start out by writing crime. I'm happy that people are liking it, but it's difficult to write crime fiction, because you have to, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, you have to work a lot at having a plot that, especially if you've watched so much, you think that I've written something, somebody's going to guess who the killer is. So you have to kind
Yes.
of work extra
Yes.
hard to make sure people don't get the plot say in the second chapter. So
Yes.
yeah,
That is true. So,
it's challenging.
adding on to that question, what I meant to ask was that when one is more preferred in a particular genre as an author, does it become difficult to, become a jack of all trades? I can do all genres really well and get appreciated and accepted for being an author who can do all genres well.
I think it kind of depends on the person. Like there are some genres that I know that I probably won't be able to write, like science fiction, speculative
Hmm.
stuff. I have a feeling that, because I don't read a lot of those
Hmm.
genres, so I'm pretty sure that I wouldn't be able to write uh, anything of any value. I wouldn't even go there,
Yeah.
because
Okay.
it's not something I enjoy reading, so I'm pretty sure I won't be able to write it. But there are plenty of other writers who manage different genres with effortlessly. So I'm sure people can do it. For me, I think I have my limitations. The crime thing I only did because I love crime so much, so I wanted to write crime. And now that I've seen people do. I mean, some people do like reading my books. I might write maybe one or two more. Who knows?
From what I know, people have been telling me that your crime thrillers are really something that they really enjoy. So I hope you continue writing crime thrillers. I have read only one, and I can vouch based on that the others are also equally or better than this, equally good or better than this. Okay, so that brings me to the end of my questions that I had for you. Now I leave the floor open to you.
Okay, so I read your collection of shorts, Heartstrings and Harmonies, and I'm going to be very honest. I don't really read a lot of romantic stuff, but the way you've handled your collection and the way it kind of seamlessly moves from one story to the next, and it doesn't get very dark and depressing. Your treatment of all the stories, it's very light-hearted. So it's very engaging. So I kept going from it's like having a like bad example, but having a bag of chips, you just keep having one and you can't stop. So it was like a very enjoyable experience for me. I enjoyed it, and not only the stories were like slice of life stories about hope, heartbreak, resilience, having a positive attitude in the face of adversity, things that everybody experiences at some point of time or the other. But what I especially liked was the way you wrote them, never really getting morbid or melodramatic. It was very light-hearted and optimistic. And I feel that one needs to read stories like this so that you don't get bogged down by things happening in your day-to-day life. You can just take a break and read something like this. So while I mean, I'm happy I met you and I got a chance to read this, because normally I don't read romantic stories, but this one was really like I mean, it's probably, this term has been used a lot, but breath of fresh air. I
Oh,
enjoyed it
thank
a
you.
lot.
Thank you so
I
much.
don't listen to a lot of Hindi. I mean, other than the really popular ones. So this was like, it's like Antakshari. Actually, you got like a literary Antakshari. So
Oh,
there was like a story attached to a song, which was really nice.
thank you.
So yeah,
I am just going to
I
take this opportunity to tell everyone that the book that we are discussing is now also available in paperback. And I'm holding it right now.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
It's also available in paperback and hardcover. Before this, it was only available on Kindle, and now you can also enjoy it as a paperback. Thank you. Please go on.
So I just wanted to read one of the stories which I really loved because I mean I loved all the stories, but this one kind of struck a chord because something like this has happened to somebody in the family where they just were going to get into a really bad accident, but something happened and they didn't make that trip, so they got saved. So this is a story called Come Back Home. Come Back Home. So I'll just read it. I will not, you'll have to excuse me. I'm not going to read the Hindi lyrics. I'm going to read the English part because I'm going to make an ass of myself on Insta with my Hindi
Okay,
pronunciation.
sure, sure. No problem.
So this story is called Come Back Home. Hey Mayank, are you ready? Let's get this done soon. I'm really tired today. Yes, bro, give me a second. I'll collect the certificates that we have to hand over. Samath nodded and took a seat at the sofa in the foyer. Mayank and he worked as consultants come quality assurance technicians at Payal Jewelers. They had joined the store almost together a little over a year ago. Being from families that had been in the jewelry business for generations, they had similar backstories. Before joining the family business, their fathers had asked them to get an understanding of the industry by training under somebody else. For both youngsters, Payal Jewelers had been their first choice because of its goodwill. Let's go. Have you been to Mr. Mehta's shop before? It's near Khao Gully. Let's have a couple of pudlas, is it? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes.
From Mohan Bhai before we meet Mr. Mehta, Mayank suggested as they walked out of the showroom into the bustling streets of Zaveri Bazaar. Now here there's a very nice song, but I'm not reading it out in Hindi, so you'll have to excuse me. But the lyrics are, why do you roam around countries and foreign lands? Why are you in such a bad state? Why do you roam around countries and foreign lands? You've become a wanderer of nights. Oh, naive bird, come back home.
I'm just going to pause you for a second here so that people get the context of what you have just read out. It's the Hindi song Nadan Parinde Ghar Aaja, for which the English lyrics Debeshi has just read out, and the lines are this: क्यों देश विदेश फिरे मारा क्यों हाल बेहाल थका हारा तू रात बिरात का बंजारा ओ नादान परिंदे घर आजा. So these are the lyrics that Deveshi just read. Yes, please go on.
Before Samarth could respond, they were interrupted by the ringing of his cell phone. It was the custom tone he had set for his mother. Hey mom, I'll be a little late today. Mayank and I have to drop off some diamond grading certificates at another shop. Let Mayank go alone, dear. You're needed here. Bhavisha has gone into labor. A mixture of anxiety and exhilaration surged through Samarth. I'll be there as soon as possible, Mom. See you at the hospital directly. Take care of Bhavu and tell her I'll be with her in half an hour. Samarth cut off the phone, already bouncing up and down on his toes. Go on, man. I'll finish this. Congratulations in advance. Remember, if it's a boy, you'll have to name him after me. Mayank winked and thumped Samarth. At Samarth's hesitation, he merely laughed and gave him a little shove towards the street exit. Thanks, man. I'll see you tomorrow. Samarth gave his friend a side hug and sprinted towards the railway station, excited at the prospect of becoming a father. The story then goes fast forwards, and then the next part is, Dad, where are you? Where were you when this happened? Weren't you working at Zaveri Bazaar that year? Samarth looked at the newspaper article his son was reading. 10 years since triple blast left 27 dead in Mumbai, trial yet to commence. The headline brought back repressed memories alongside the guilt and trauma that had followed. His eyes spooled up with unshed tears. Sniffling, he answered with a jerky smile. Let me tell you about a phone call that changed my life, Mayank. It was the day I lost a friend and found you. And then there's another bit of song. I'll just read out the English. This song actually happens to be one of my favorites from that that movie, and thanks to you, now I have a translation. Hey, lost raven, I have a request for you. Eat my meat selectively, I request you. Don't gouge out my eyes because I yearn to see my beloved. Samath hummed before beginning the tale.
Thank you so much for reading that out. Yeah, so this is the third or fourth short story that I have written in which I have made an attack like this a part of the story. And I've always felt that, such stories need to be told more often because the people that we lost are not spoken about enough or not remembered enough. And this was my attempt at doing that.
Yes, but the best part about it is, like I said before, you don't let it become morbid or melodramatic. That pace is very optimistic, so that's a good thing because you don't find that always. There's a tendency to do a lot more and become very, over the top. But I really like the way you've handled all of these very serious themes, actually. Because these things have happened to so many people, but in a very measured kind of manner.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to ask you that, I mean, I think we've had similar trajectories, blogging, writing books, but for you, you were a blogger before you started writing books, right? So how did that happen? I mean, was it a conscious decision to write books, or what is the story? I'd love to know the story.
So, uh, I have been a reader for the longest time. I started reading books since I was 8 years old, and ever since I held the first book in my hand and finished reading it, the feeling that I had was, I wish I could create something like this. I was very young at the time, and obviously, I grew up in a generation where such creative pursuits are not very encouraged by the parents or by the society. They are not, like they are not looked at uh, as a very good professional option to have as an adult. So it was always there in the back of my mind that I want to write a book, but it was more like an aspiration, like होगा जब करेंगे होगा देखा जाएगा. It was never a goal that with a deadline in mind. But as I grew older, the desire to write something, create something grew. And once I had done a job and was not satisfied with what I was doing in those jobs, I had done two, three jobs before I became an author. But I was not very creatively satisfied. And to satisfy that creativity, I began blogging first. And once I began blogging and people started liking what I wrote, I was like, this doesn't seem like a far-fetched dream now. This is attainable, and this is something which can be something that can be a source of income also. Maybe not the main source of income, but yes, it can be. So yeah, around 26, 27, when I was 26 or 27, I decided that maybe let's think of this concretely. And then I began compiling the poems that I had written so far till that age, because I started writing poetry since I was 13. And by the time I turned 25, 26, I had many poems already
Many
written.
times. Yeah.
बट आई मेड द रूकी मिस्टेक ऑफ जितनी पोएम्स लिखी है सबको एक बुक में डाल दो और पब्लिश कर दो. दैट वाज अ रूकी मिस्टेक आई मेड विथ माय डेब्यू बुक, एंड यू लर्न एज यू गो with such things. So after that first book and the lessons that I learned from them, I began looking at book writing as a very niche kind of writing. It has to have a theme, it has to have some kind of message in it. It can't be all jumbled up. सब कुछ तुमने लिखा है और उसको एक book में डाल दोगे. It's not necessary that it will work. Most often than not, it doesn't work because people want to read something which has a message and which is uniformed. Like you cannot have a jumbled up version of your writing. This is what I have learned over the course of writing a few books now. And in the second book, I tried doing that and it was received well. And since then, I have tried to explore as many genres as possible and be as creative as possible. Possibly I can be with my writing. For instance, in my last two books, I have made music a very integral part of the writing that I have done. With this book, I have written each story based on a song where the song becomes a very important part of the story and where the character stories are developed through those songs. In the book that I had written before that, I had written poetry, or a poetry book before this, which is titled Knight in Shining Armor. In that, with each poem, I have asked the readers that you can combine this particular poem with this particular song. If you listen to the song while reading the poem, maybe your, reading experience will be elevated. And I have got a very good response on that because many of the readers did try that. In the beginning of each poem, I've written best paired with this song, and the readers have paired that song while reading the poem, and they came back and told me it was a wonderful experience. So this is, as a creative person and an author, I try combining all forms of creativity into my writing, and it's been a good
Oh, I
experience so
noticed
far.
that. I noticed that. That was very interesting. Even in this book, you have like uh, uh, these little, can I call them quotes? And then you say, read the story and come back to it. And then
Yeah.
there's a little glossary at the end. So
Yes.
it's just done very methodically with a very, very clear plan. So I think that, I mean, I enjoyed it. I'm sure everybody who reads this will like it, which then brings me to my second question. I also notice a lot of it is also to do with romance and love. So do you have any plans to explore any other genres, like maybe do a musical thriller, something like that?
Yeah, I do have a plan, and some of it I have already put into action in two of the stories from this book itself. If you notice, there are two horror thrillers in this book itself, where uh, you get a feeling that there is something supernatural that is there, and it's something is happening there.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
yes, I do want to convert that bit of my writing into something longer, maybe a novella or a novel,
Yeah.
and hopefully in the next couple of years I would be able to do that. I have already begun writing one such story, but it's taking longer than I'm anticipating because thriller is something I've not done before. So it's something new for me, so it's taking time. I don't know when it will materialize concretely further, but yes, I do want to do that.
Exciting. Looking forward to it.
How did you like the two horror thrillers in
I
this?
like, there was one. There was one about I mean, you've kept that a little ambiguous, but I like that because I feel that can also be developed. You know, the digging thing.
Hmm.
There were people digging, and the ending was a little open ended. So I found that story quite fascinating because there were a lot of possibilities. If
Yes.
you were to expand it into a bigger,
Yeah.
bigger novel or a novella, it has a lot of possibilities. So there are many, in fact, in your. I mean, not just. I'm not just talking about supernatural and horror, but there are many of your shorts which actually could become larger.
Yeah. Yeah, a few of my readers have got back and told me that we want to read more of these characters, what
Yes.
happens before and
Yeah,
after.
yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
I'll
That's
get
a
the
thought.
motivation, right amount of motivation to convert them into bigger stories.
Yeah.
We were getting a lot of hearts when you were reading out from my book, so I just want to thank everyone who liked what you read out. Thank you so much. Okay, now we come to my favorite bit of the episode, which is the rapid fire round. So, Debeshi, what we'll do in this is we'll go back and forth. One question I will ask and one question you ask. Oh, all right.
Okay.
My first question to you is because I found the four women in this book very fascinating. I liked all the four characters, and it was difficult for me to choose a favorite because they are so quirky. They have their own unique characters which are like, हाँ ये मेरी दोस्त ऐसा कुछ करती है, ये इसका ये ऐसा होता है. So I want to ask you, who out of these four women would you befriend and why?
Honestly, I think I befriend all of them because they all have some traits. They're all fundamentally very flawed characters, all of them, all the women, and I mean that's like all of us,
Yeah,
right? Nobody's perfect. So I think, and they're all gray. Nobody's black and white. So I think I would actually like to be friends with all of them because it would be interesting having friends like this.
definitely.
Okay, so
But
my question.
I want to add on to that. I would be really skeptical of B because I wouldn't be very sure of sharing my secrets with her.
Yes, but me as a person, I don't really share my secrets with a lot. I'm like,
Mm.
don't really share my secrets with a lot of people. There are just maybe one and a half people who I'm really close, and they know, so
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
okay. I mean, in a larger context, yes, but I'm completely, when you find out more about B, you realize you
Okay.
would be a little, yeah,
Okay.
I get that. Um, for me, I want to know which is your favorite story in the collection that you wrote.
I'm just going to look at the index because there are 29 of them. Uh, I would like to say that, the one about the two brothers definitely is one of my top five. About Mayank and Manav, who are two brothers, and I'm forgetting title of the story, but it's the song "Jame Raho" from Tare Zameen Par. Yes, the world slogan "Stay Vigilant." That is definitely one of my top five from all the 29, and I would say, this intoxicating evening forms top three because that was the first story, and that's where the entire book started. I received this writing prompt from a community of bloggers that I'm a part of, Blog Chatter
Okay.
community, and the writing prompt was write a story inspired by your favorite song, and immediately this song came to my head. ये शाम मस्तानी मधोश किए जाए, and then I weave the story about these three generations coming together because of a musical box that you find, and how it connects the three generations and how it forms an integral part of the grandfather's love story, and how the grandson comes to know about this story through that jukebox. So that is also one of the stories that's really close to my heart.
Okay.
Okay.
Fascinating.
Okay, my next question to you is, since we see a lot of secrets spilling out in this elite women's group that we read about in this book, the book club, I want to know what is the strangest thing or story that you have come across in such women's groups.
Honestly, I'm just going to be very honest. I have been in and out of groups because I don't do very well with groups. I was in a book club here in Gurgaon once, but somehow or the other that group club didn't work out. The book club, sorry, didn't work out because nobody had time to meet regularly and discuss books. So after a few meetings, it just fizzled out. As far as women's groups are concerned, again, my luck hasn't been very good with women's groups because there's a tendency to form cliques. There's a lot of politicking that happens. There are some elite groups where, like I said, I've been in and out because there's a tendency to flash a lot of money. People are not very sincere, and you know, I'm at that age where I really can't, and I don't think it's now. I don't think I've ever been able to really put up too much. I mean, of a, I am what I am, and I can't, I don't do a lot of things that you need to do to be a part of these groups. So, yeah, but see, a lot of stories are fascinating because the way, like I said, how people put up there are masks people wear, people
Hmm.
throw a lot of money, people pretend to be rich when they are not, because it's just that that public aura they need to maintain. So for instance, there are people who would take hefty bank loans to go for a foreign vacation because they need to show people in the group that hey, we are going to Europe, but they're not doing too well, but they don't want people to know that they're not doing too well. So there are some really I mean, things that I've come across which are quite drastic, I'd say. But then that's a thing about living in some of these metro cities where you just have to put on a kind of a facade. So I find a lot of these things very interesting. As a writer, I observe. I'm not really a part of groups as such because, like I said, I don't do well with groups. I have some very close friends, but yeah,
Okay.
so, but these things are interesting. Imagine taking a loan to go on a holiday because you don't want people to know that you can't afford a holiday. I mean,
Yeah.
it's sad, right? At
It's
some
really,
level.
yeah, that's really sad. And the lengths to which you go to maintain the facade.
Yes, yes. So some of it you would have, when you read the book, you find that people are doing all sorts of trickeries to kind of maintain an image about, the image
Yeah.
is very important to how people perceive you.
Yeah.
So yeah, so stuff like that basically.
Okay.
Okay, now you need to tell me which story was really difficult to write.
I think the thriller stories were difficult, and in fact, all the stories that are part of the last section where I talk about grief and loss, I think those were really difficult. Personally, they were difficult to write because not only was it an emotional journey for me to write those stories, because we are talking about at least one person losing their life in the entirety of the story. At least one person is losing their life, and how the people who are left behind cope with that. So those were difficult to write. And besides that, the couple of the horror thriller stories, those were really difficult because I scare very easily. I'm a scaredy cat. So while I was writing the story, also I was getting scared. यार मैं क्या कर रही हूँ? Why am I doing this to myself? Especially the
That's
story
great.
where
That's great.
the couple goes for a holiday, because that felt very relatable क्योंकि हम सब जाते हैं, because my husband and I are avid travelers and we visit such places, and I was like ये तो मेरे साथ भी हो सकता है यार मैं if I go to such a staycation place which is like far away, and it's only one old person is taking care of that, and रात को अचानक he does something like this, what will I do? So yeah, that yeah, so the stories in the last section and a couple of horror thriller stories that I wrote, those were the most difficult for me.
Okay, all right.
Okay, coming back to my question for you. Since you have written Who Done It, and this is not the only Who Done It, I'm assuming that you have written, because Dragon Auntie is also, I believe, it's also a crime thriller, right?
Not
So
Dragon Auntie, but not Dragon Auntie, but Dragon Auntie has a sequel called The Mangar Mayhem and
okay,
Rashogolla Murders.
Roshagulla,
There are
yeah.
two actually. Yeah, yeah. So those are crime, but they're funny crime. They're like comic capers actually, crime capers.
Okay, okay. Okay, and you have also mentioned that you like reading this genre a lot yourself. So, recommend us a book or a movie show or a TV which you like the most in this genre and which you like the least in this genre. You can recommend both or just one also. I mean, both a book and a TV series or a show or a movie, and just a book or a movie or show.
Okay, so book. See, there's this author called Anthony Horowitz who I really like reading. I mean, he generally writes young adult novels. He's also been commissioned to write the 007 novels, but he has this series. I don't know if you've heard of Magpie Murders, Moonflower Murders. So they're like crime, but there's like, yeah, crime, but there's a little bit of there's wit in it, so there's funny. There's like crimes in sleepy English villages. So I really like his books a lot, and I
Okay,
just read one. In fact, I think it was called the latest one, Close to Death. I think it was about.
okay,
So he has this peculiar format, not peculiar. It's very interesting, where it's like a book within a book. So uh, uh, the characters are talking about a murder which happens in a book. So they're like it's very unusual but very interesting. So who done it? But there's humor. So I really liked uh, his stuff and the latest one. As far as series is concerned, I recently saw something called Good Girl's Guide to Murder, which again I think is based on a book,
yeah,
a young adult series about this, I think, a high school girl who's trying to solve a murder, but for a project that she has to write for university. That was
yeah.
quite interesting. It's on Netflix, so that was quite interesting. Um, I don't really, if it's okay, I don't want to talk about the ones I didn't like. I mean, there are some, but again, it would be my perception. So I don't want to put somebody off watching or reading something because I didn't like it.
Okay,
So these
okay,
these two I really like.
okay. Fair enough. No problem.
Okay, my question is that you've written this collection of 29 shorts, right? I didn't count them.
Yes, yes.
29.
Fine.
Are they all fictitious, or is there some real life element in some of them?
There is some some real life element in a few of them, at least a couple of them that I can recall currently. One is that brother wala story that I just told you about, Mayank and Manav. Uh, that is very close, very relatable to my life because I am the younger sibling in that equation, and my elder sibling, my elder brother, is also like that overachiever who I have spoken about in the story, and I am like that much smaller, younger version, who's not bothered about academics much so much, and finds their purpose in life later on, realizing that maybe I'm not meant for academic stuff. I'm creatively inclined, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was one. And there's at least one more incident that I can recall. There's a story about two friends who are trying to catch a bus when they are on the way to college. And that's also an incident that happened with me. Uh, we were not on the way to college. We were on the way home from our coaching class, and my friend got into the bus, and I was about to miss the bus because the bus started moving. And the same thing happened with us. She put her hand out and she pulled me in. So that's also one of the incidents that I have taken from real life, my own experience, and I put it into a story in a different format. But that's an entire incident that happened with me also.
Okay.
Okay. My next question to you is, uh, we the story in the book club ends where the whodunit is revealed, and we don't know what happens after it. What, according to you, would be the aftermath of what happens after it, and how do the characters who come to know that this person has done it, how are they going to deal with life, and what are their reactions?
I mean, obviously, without giving the plot away, it's going to have some. I've kept that open. It's obviously going to have a quite a severe impact on everybody concerned. Their lives are going to change after they find out who did it, and it's not going to be the same anymore. Um, Again, I mean, I kept it. I revealed who the murderer is, but I kept it open. I mean, you can imagine. I like to do that sometimes with some of my stories, where you imagine what's going to happen. But in any case, I mean, I think it would be safe to say that their lives are not going to be the same
Hmm.
with this. When I was a little girl, actually, this story is inspired by something I'd seen at that point of time as a child in
Okay.
in our circle in our circle of friends. Hadn't really realized the impact of it because I was very small. Then when I grew up, I could ask my mom about her perception of you know what had
Hmm.
happened, and she would, and our friends, and they would all come up with different things. So yeah, I mean, a little bit of that I've woven into the story, but safe to say, I mean, things change. Something
Yeah.
like this happens in a friend group. Life is not the same. So I guess they would all go on carrying that burden of trauma with them wherever they go. But
Yeah.
that's how I imagine it. But I guess everybody who reads it will probably have their own way of
Yeah.
looking at it.
Yes. And we don't want to give spoilers, so we can't really say what we feel about it really.
Yeah, exactly. So I can't talk about it too much because I don't want to reveal
I understand.
anything. That's the other tricky thing about crime novels. But yeah, uh,
Okay. Yes. Your turn.
this is something I really actually wanted to ask you out of all the questions is how do you plan it? Which came first, the story or the song?
So it's been a combination of both actually. For as you might know that all the 29 stories have come up from writing prompts that I received from various sources. As a blogger, I'm a part of various communities, so I received a lot of writing prompts, and I use those prompts to create the 29 stories, which are a part of Heartstrings and Harmonies. So whenever the prompt came to me, sometimes what happened was when I looked at the prompt and right away I knew, okay, this is the song that would go perfectly with this particular prompt. And after that, I heard the song and I would try to weave a story around it. I try to, sing the song throughout the week, and then the story would come to me, and I was like, yes, this particular line and this particular story and what happens with the character will go very well with this particular line in the story. For instance, there is one story where we are talking about one-sided love.
Yes,
There's a
yes,
girl and a boy, and
yeah, I remember that
yeah,
vividly.
yes. So for that particular prompt, the song came to me immediately because in the movie also that song comes at the time where the boy falls in love, but the girl doesn't fall in love with her, and there's this particular line in that song that uh, you have left, but your presence is still around. I cannot let go of that presence. And I was like, okay, why not reverse this and use the same equation with where the girl is falling in love, but the boy is not falling. And then I weave that entire story where they are meeting at the cafe, and the girl is explaining her side of the story, why she took the decision of severing ties with him and maintaining a distance from him. So that particular song became a part of that story, and those particular lyrics that I was just telling you about, that the, she has left, but the boy still feels her presence around, and I have used those lyrics to explain the feelings of the woman character in my story. So that's how this one happened. And for some other stories, it was like that the story came to me first. As soon as I read the prompt, the story came to me, and then I had to search for songs for a week or 10 days. I was just googling songs that that would fit with that particular story that I had in my head, and I would be googling like songs related to friendship, songs related to grief, songs related to spirituality. And then I would go over the lyrics of the song and try to weave the scenes in the story and make them a part of that particular story that I was thinking about. And yeah, so it's been a mix and match. But for most of the prompts, the songs came to me first. That was the easier process. But when the story came to me first, it became a tougher process because I would really spend a week or 10 days trying to zero down on the song.
Okay.
Okay, my last question to you. Uh, Out of the characters from the book club, which character could you relate to the most and why?
Um, this is going to be
I know this is
whoever
a tough
gives
one.
it later. The narrator for sure.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
person who's telling the story. So Ananya is Ani is the person I relate to for a whole lot of reasons, which I again don't want to give away the plot, but um, I guess sometimes when you're telling the story from somebody's point of view, you kind of start owning, for good or for
Hmm.
better or for worse, you start owning the character a little bit,
That's
because
true.
I mean you're telling the story, so it's a psychological thing I think which happens, not always a good thing. But like for Dragon Auntie, when I started telling the story, though that the character the Bengali lady who's telling the story, there's a lot of similarities with me, but still, I think there's a tendency if you're writing it, it kind of becomes your story. So I guess yeah, I kind of probably she's she's flawed, but I do
Yeah, actually,
uh,
there are certain aspects of her personality that I could also relate to. For instance, when the inspector comes at her home and he shuffles the things around in her hall, like he moves the picture frames around. I was like, yes, if somebody did that to my stuff in my house, I would also be irritated and put them back together where they were.
yeah, I mean she's very particular about her space. She does have things which I don't like she's a little she's looking down on the inspector because she feels she's socially in a different league. So there are little things that I don't like, but then she gets het up, she gets her panic attack. So there are things that I can relate to, and again, because I'm the one who's writing as her, it kind of becomes somebody that you relate to a lot more than maybe the other characters. So,
True.
okay. Now, my last question to you would be like one writer to another. How much time did it take to put all of it? Because you said like some songs came to you and the process was simple. In the ones where the songs didn't come and you had to Google and do your research and find songs that fit the mood of the story. So, how much time did all of this take to get
Uh,
the collection ready?
okay, so the first draft was ready in about 6 or 7 months. But after that, I took a while to do the editing and
Thank you.
do a reread of the story, polishing the stories, because the first draft,
Yeah.
obviously we can't publish the first draft as a book. It needs a lot of reworking, rethinking, and maybe also involving beta readers into the process, who can tell you that this might not work or this will work. So,
Yes.
6 months for the writing and about 2 to 3 months for everything to be tied together properly, for all the strings, as we can say,
The
all the
strings
threads
of
to
the
be tied
marketing
neatly
strings.
into a package. Yeah, so
Okay.
about 9 months, yes. Nine
Okay.
to 10 months, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's like they say, the books are our babies. This one was really the amount of time it takes for me.
I know. Okay, Tarang is saying stories based on songs. It sounds fascinating. Thank you so much, Tarang. Did we miss out? Tarang has also said that Rashgulla Murders is one of her favorites.
Thank you so much. And Tarang, you will love reading Malali's book, because I know the kind of stories she likes, and she will enjoy this very much,
Okay,
your short story collection.
please do check out Tarang because it comes recommended from your favorite author now. Okay, I think we have addressed all the remarks that we received, comments and questions that we received before this. So that's about it. I think we can wrap it up. Thank you once again for joining me, Debushi, and I hope I can have you as a guest again. Please keep writing more books, and I hope you continue writing more crime thrillers because I have read your crime thriller, and that's a genre that I enjoy. So
Thank you so much. And I'm going to sign off. Looking forward to your musical thriller and the supernatural ones based on the little shorts that I read.
definitely. It's yes, as I mentioned, it's something new that I'm doing, so it will take a while. But yes, I do want to do that, adding it to my TBR. Thank you so much, Tarang. That makes me very happy. So thank you, Debeshi, for joining me, and thank you everyone
Thank
for
you.
being such a lovely audience. We received a lot of hearts. I was noticing that during the conversation, we received a lot of hearts. So thank you everyone for joining us. That's about it from this episode. Thank you,
See
Debeshi, and thank you
you.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Have a
Bye.
great
Bye.
weekend. Bye.
You too. Bye.